Welcome back to the neighborhood. My name is Dylan, and today we are going to be talking about my favorite monsters in Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. Monster Hunter World was my first Monster Hunter game. I've always been a fan of big monsters, dinosaurs, and ridiculous weapons and armor, so this seemed like a game series made for me, and I was hooked from the first trailer I saw. I fell in love with this game series, and Monster Hunter World was basically my go-to game for the rest of the year. Iceborne came out a year and a half later and added even more for me to love. I can't recommend it enough if you've never tried out the series. The monsters are obviously a huge part of a game called Monster Hunter, so I want to talk about my 5 favorite monsters. Now these are my personal picks, so please feel free to jump in the comments and tell me your favorites down below. Number 5, Rathalos. Sure, the Rathalos may just be a more traditional seeming wyvern, especially if you're familiar with pretty much any fantasy world at all, but to me, that doesn't make it any less cool. It's been a part of the series since it was on the box of the first game. Sure, sometimes the flying and poison can get a little annoying, but it's just so dang fun to look at, and I appreciate the verticality that it adds to a lot of its battles. It also lets you craft probably my favorite armor set in the game, so I had to put it on my list. Number 4, Odogaron. This big red dog is not the star of a children's book or TV series, but it does earn a spot on my list. Bumping into this monster down in the Rotten Vale was terrifying. The Eastern Dragon aesthetic of the monster, armor, and weapons was a lot of fun, and I definitely captured quite a few Odogarons to make sure I could make everything. It was also the first time I had to use the seemingly random mechanic of eating a well-done steak to stop my character from bleeding. I know crouching also stops the bleeding, but it's not as funny. Number 3, Glavenus. This is a big armored dinosaur with a sword for a tail. I feel like that's enough of a reason, honestly. The design of this monster is just so cool to me. I love the idea of a monster with a metal-like armor plating that can temper it using its fire breath. It definitely took a few tries to finally beat my first time playing because of how much some of its attacks can hurt, especially when it starts swiping at you with a flaming tail. The almost gothic spiked armor set I could craft after finally winning was a great payoff too. Number 2, Nergigante. It seems like most Monster Hunter fans hold a special place in their hearts for their first flagship monster, the one that shows up on the game's box art and is used in all the promotional materials. Nergigante is that for me. The fight is a lot of fun, as it hits like a truck and is constantly regenerating the spikes on its body, which makes it more dangerous. This monster has been showing up all game and harassing us, and so finally defeating it felt like such an accomplishment for a Monster Hunter newbie like me. The music theme was epic, and I loved how it showed up at the end of Iceborne to assert its dominance. Number 1, Anjanath. This T-Rex that breathes fire from its nose was the first wall I ran into while playing the game. It's a tough fight, especially early on when you're still learning how the game works and you don't have a ton of powerful weapons or armor. Anjanath has quite a few moves that can either one-shot you or severely wound you if you're not being careful, but it's also a great monster to learn the basics on. I had been having fun with the game before fighting this monster, but after finally defeating it, the game solidified into one of my all-time favorites. Because of that, it only feels right to put Anjanath at the top of my list. Well, these are my favorite monsters from World and Iceborne. I think pretty much every monster in the game is fantastic in its own way. One of the draws of the game is getting to discover new monsters and variations of ones that you've already fought. More importantly, you get to see how cool the weapons and armor look once you defeat it. Let me know your favorite monsters down in the comments. Like I've said, Monster Hunter has become one of my favorite series, and I wholeheartedly recommend you check it out if you haven't. If you want to hear us talk more about it, check out the linked video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like or even subscribing to get notified when a new one goes up. If you're interested in hearing more from your friendly neighborhood gamers, check out our podcast pretty much anywhere you can get them, even YouTube Music. That's all from me, so I'll leave you with a reminder to stay friendly, gamers.